Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our AMA, Ask Microsoft Anything on Finding Your Way to Cloud First. For those of you that were just in the last one for the security session, thank you for joining us, spending your morning, your afternoon, your evening with us. My name is Joe Lurie. I'm going to be your host this afternoon or this morning. And I'm here with some cast of characters that you might have seen before and some new ones. I'm first going to hand it over to Lavanya because I'm the least important person here, and the rest of these people here, they're who you came to see. Lavanya?
Hey everyone, super excited to be here. So good to see you all and answer all your questions. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lavanya and I'm the PM lead for the generative AI experience within Intune and super excited to answer all your questions. I'm going to hand it over to Jason.
Hey everybody, so Jason Sandys. I'm on the Intune product group. I'm actually on a sister team called the Customer Acceleration Team. A product manager that deals with anything and everything Windows, and I won't say passion, but one of my main cores of focus has been cloud native for 2-3 years now. Danny?
Hey, my name is Danny Guillory. On the product group for Intune, on the app model related to Windows. So any complaints, send them my way about the app model. Rob, you.
Thanks, Danny. Hey, morning, afternoon, everyone. My name's Rabiok. I am the PM architect on the Intune and Windows commercial team. My main focus is our cloud native transition, helping customers move from Intune and AD from Config Manager and AD to Intune and Entra ID.
Great, and I'm also on the CAT team with Jason. We're on the same team. He's kind of on a sister team of mine, but we're pretty much on the same team. And I started earlier by saying, same cast of characters. Jason, you and I are on a lot of calls together. Danny, you and I were just on a call together with your Unpacking Endpoint Management, talking about the Win32 app model, which was a lot of fun. And of course, Lavanya and Rob, I see you at a lot of conferences and always enjoy talking to you. So this session, we're talking about finding your way to cloud first. And Jason, you said that for the last 2 to 3 years, you've really been focused on getting our customers to go cloud native, as we call it. And Rob, you said that that's part of your responsibilities. Jason, tell us about some of the things that you're doing with our customers to help move them over to a cloud native management.
Yeah, so it's clearly a big shift for most organizations, both from a paradigm perspective and a real absolute, brass tacks perspective, right? When things actually are happening in an organization. So part of it is just convincing folks, or at least quelling fears that folks have of that cloud native is going to, destroy everything that they're doing, and that they're not going to be able to continue to do what they're doing as far as productivity goes, right? That's the whole bottom line here, is we want to make sure our users can do their jobs. And so, there are some hurdles. There is some friction here. There is change, and lots of folks are afraid of that change. So we got to make sure that folks can control that fear, make sure that doesn't, leave them in analysis paralysis. And clearly lots of cliches I can throw out here, and I've already thrown out a few, but it's about getting folks comfortable with where we're going, because this is where Microsoft is going. We are a cloud company. It is part of our mission. Our services and solutions, if they haven't already completely pivoted to cloud first and cloud native, that's where they're all going. So a lot of it is just really talking to customers. And then anytime we identify any friction, anytime that we figure out that there is something that's potentially blocking a customer, that's when we start talking to folks like Rob, Danny, even anyone on the product team that needs to get involved, so that we can figure out exactly what needs to happen to help that customer get over that hurdle. Sometimes that's technical, sometimes it's not technical, right? Sometimes it's just shifting perspectives. So there's lots of different ways to attack this one.
Cool. And Rob, when we talk about cloud native, one of the fun things for us is we hear a lot of our teams still use the word modern, which modern is no longer really a modern word any longer. And you have like a swear jar for the word modern. So when we talk about cloud native, are we talking about Intune managed? Are we talking about Entra, hybrid joined? What exactly do we mean, us in this panel, when we talk about moving to a cloud first or a cloud native environment?
So when we talk about cloud native, we talk about two very specific things. We talk about Intune managed, and we talk about Entra ID joined. you'll notice in there is no co-management and there is no hybrid. Those are perfectly great transitionary states, but the North Star, the place that we are aiming to get our customers to is cloud native, and it is those two things of entirely cloud. It's in the name, cloud native. Intune and Entra ID. For your existing devices, getting those devices that are already joined to the domain, getting those enrolled into hybrid and getting them co-managed to allow you to begin that transition. That's the perfect state for those. But for new devices, the place where customers should be aiming for is with, through autopilot, through user-driven autopilot into Intune only and Entra ID only. And yes, as you say, I have a modern swear jar. I don't really like the term because it's at best 15 years old and was obsolete before we even started talking about it. Modern meant some very specific things. It meant only managed through the OMA DM channel. It meant getting rid of Win32 apps. And it was Windows 8 as well, but we'll forget about that bit. But those two things of Win32, like it's here to stay. We're not pushing store apps, we're not pushing UWP apps in the same way that we were, back when we had that vision of, hey, Windows should just be like a mobile platform. Windows is not a mobile platform. Windows is Windows. So that's why I don't like the term modern, because it implies a number of different things. And also it has a little bit of wiggle room. So we want to be really explicit. And when we talk about cloud native, it is those two things. It is Intune enrolled and it is Entra ID joined. People have probably heard me get on my soapbox about hybrid before. I love hybrid, but for those existing devices. For new devices, cloud native is the place to aim for.
I know you say that Windows is not a mobile platform, but I still, to this day, and this, as we're doing this in 2024, I still miss my Nokia Windows phone. It was always my favorite phone. I've had many phones since then, and I still miss my Nokia. All right, we do have a question that came in from LinkedIn. I'm going to give this to you, Danny. You are responsible for the Win32 app model, and so as we start talking about the app model and deploying apps in Intune, the question on LinkedIn is, there was a lot of talk at Build about cloud-native app development. Does that add more complications for us as an enterprise? Should we be encouraging our ISVs to pursue this cloud-native app development as we update our own LOB or line of business apps?
No, I'm just kidding. So now, whenever you're thinking about your app management, I definitely would lean on my ISVs for more cloud stuff. The biggest hurdle I remember back in the day used to be, it was hurdle then excuse now, is, hey, my app authenticates on-prem only. Yeah, okay. There's no longer a blocker. That's just kind of a scapegoat of you trying to get out of doing the work. And there is work to go cloud native. Rob mentioned the transitionary stages. They're just transitionary stages or temporary stages. So as far as app management, I don't think it adds complexity. There is one lens you could look through to say, yes, it's complexity, but I would say that you're looking through the wrong lens. You need to look at the simplification as well as the security that cloud attachment of the application is bringing you. It's very easy to see the negatives. It's very easy to see the work, and be very easy to say, I don't want to do said work. It's going to take too much time. Look, I've been through all the excuses myself because I've been a customer for still more years than I've been at Microsoft. So it's easy to see the work and say no. It's easy to do all of the scapegoat things. It's harder to accept the work because as we're trying to tell all customers over and over again, cloud native is the way to be because that is a simpler state. That is the more secure state. And there's just unfortunately work to get there. Size of your organization, your processes, your organizational processes, don't run from it. It's probably something I would have done younger in my career. Don't run from the work. Embrace the work. It's learning. It's education and transition for you, and you're just going to make everything better. That's it. I'll get off of that soapbox.
Sorry, Joe, just to add on to that, the apps and authentication in particular it's a common question we see from customers. The vast majority of apps will work on an Entra ID joined device. There's things that you can do to continue to use hybrid authentication. Cloud Kerberos proxy, I think, is the name that allows you to do the translation of on-prem authentication from a cloud joined device. There's a very few scenarios where apps will fundamentally break, and it tends to be how the app has been coded. I was talking to a customer yesterday where the app is looking to computer objects in the domain. Like, that's fundamentally going to have to change, because in an Entra ID joined device, there is no computer object in the domain. And that's kind of by design. It brings zero trust principles. It prevents lateral movement. So it's all good stuff. But if you've got apps in that using that kind of concept, they will be the ones that are broken, but they are by far and away in the minority, and the vast majority of apps will work. And in fact, I challenge all my customers that I talk to, in this vein, hey, just grab a couple of devices that you've got lying around and just go do a really small proof of concept with just just go get yourself a cloud native device provisioned and try it and see, hey, the apps are working, and then go grow that out. Use that proximity pilot growth that many customers have always used by, hey, who's the nearest person down the corridor to me? Hey, here you go. Here's a new device. Go try it out, and go expand that way. And it's a really quick way of being able to expand that and build the confidence that it will work on the other side.
Yeah, you
can. I'm sorry. A couple of things that I wanted to mention. Danny was talking about, maybe your app is coded one way, and Rob was talking about it's coded another way. If you have an issue with the way the app has been coded, reach out to our App Assure team. We had that link on here a couple of minutes ago, aka.ms/App Assure, APPASSURE. And it's probably part of your subscription, so it shouldn't cost you anything, and they'll help you out. And the other thing I wanted to mention was we had another link up there, SSO to on-prem. So again, aka.ms/SSO as in single sign-on to on-prem, SSO to on-prem, for help with some of those things as well. And I'm not sure if I cut somebody off to say that.
I'm sure we got more questions. Just keep going, because
We
can
do.
talk about the app. We can talk about the app thing.
We could do the whole time. So we got a question from Olaf on Tech Community. Thanks, Olaf. I'm helping a customer transition away from SCCM and GPO to Intune. There are still pains around missing features in Intune. Any chance we will ever see policy priorities, link order, enforce in GPO, group policy preferences like create a registry key in an easy way using settings catalog, driver or printer mappings? I know this is basic stuff. Again, like the group policy preferences, I know this is basic, but things would be so much easier if we had this. Jason, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I'll take this one. Bottom line is, we can never say never. We'll never say definitely for sure. The best we can say on some of these is there's lots of investigations. We know there's a gap here on some of these things, and actually pretty much everything that was explicitly called out. There are certain things in progress to close some of those. At least we hope that it will close the requirement. Right. One of the things we always focus on with customers here is not just that very explicit detail that they're asking for, but what's behind that detail. Why are they asking for that specific thing? And so we want to make sure that we're addressing that why and not just that explicit detail. So lots of investigations going on, lots of motions going on. I don't bet with my own money. I'll bet with Rob's money or maybe Danny's money.
Broke.
Both, yeah. I would say that we're going to have some things that are going to start getting towards this, right? I'm not going to be specific just because I don't even know what they look like. Some of this stuff is literally back of the napkin stuff right now, and that we've talked about. We honestly talked about a lot of this for a long time. Getting the infrastructure in place for this is non-trivial, right? Intune is a non-trivial service. But we know the friction's there. This is one of those things that we do talk about with customers consistently when they go cloud native, though. Today, the stopgaps are scripts. Scripts are great. PowerShell's great. If you don't have PowerShell skills, go get them because that's invaluable. Because there's always going to be some gap, right? The registry, you go back to the registry settings. The registry's huge. We all know that. It has effectively an infinite number of settings. We're never going to be able to capture something like that in the UI of Intune. So there's always going to be some gap here that you're going to need to do some filling with. But having said that, we understand that there is more that we should be putting in the UI and more functionality that's there. And we have motions in place to address. Like I said, everything that you've called out, I think is somewhere in the planning cycle, but timelines for that are indeterminate at this point.
Yeah, and I just want to add on some pieces there as well in terms of how we think about parity. I'll hold my hand up. I don't even need to hold Jason's hand up. That there are some gaps. That there's work that we need to do. One of my main jobs is to be tracking that list and pestering people like Danny to go make sure that they're closing gaps. And there's some discussions around filters and stuff like that. So there are some gaps that we are actively tracking. And I can't announce anything, but you will see new features come over the coming months. But fundamentally, we're not going to go build Config Manager in the cloud. As we talk about cloud native and the benefits of cloud native and how it's it's more streamlined, the device performance is better, it reduces help desk call volume. All of these are stats that we see through both quantitative and qualitative data. A lot of that is not coming from the technology change. Some of it is, but it's also coming from the process change and the fact that IT is a different landscape to where a lot of the processes that a lot of customers created 20 years ago by some guy named Derek, who no longer works for the company. Not picking on Derek in particular, he's probably a great guy, but taking the opportunity to rethink the processes and apply them to the modern landscape. Zero trust is the really big one there.
Hey, Derek, Rob just called you an idiot.
Wow, you're going to put $1 in the modern swear jar.
I didn't say modern management, but maybe I'll put $1 in. But the point is taking the opportunity to rethink these processes and apply them so that they achieve the outcomes you're trying to achieve, not trying to achieve the implementation that you've had for 20 years is a huge way. And GPO is a really easy one to kind of call out there. My personal recommendation when it comes to creating policy from the cloud, start from scratch. Don't try and rationalize your way from what you've got in group policy. There's so much debt. There's so much just junk that's been accumulated. The one I always pick on is floppy drive. Like, do you really need to be disabling the floppy drive in 2024? So taking that opportunity and starting from scratch, because if you try and rationalize from what you have, you'll always end up with more than what you need. It's the same advice I was giving to customers in the Config Manager 2012 timeframe. We saw it so often where customers would be looking at their 2007 infrastructure and trying to apply that to the new architecture in Config Manager 2012. And people ended up with these massively bloated hierarchies that they didn't need because fundamentally the architecture was different. So it's a similar thing, like that blank piece of paper, work your way to a secure and productive device. And don't worry about all the things that you don't then pull across, because you've got the secure and productive device, and that's all you need to support your business and protect your data.
Yeah, so I was going to say, similar to us asking, getting to the why that you want to do something, that's a question you should be asking yourselves first, right? Why am I doing this in the first place? Because going back to Derek, right? Who knows what Derek's motivations were 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Who knows if there even was a Derek? A lot of things 10, 15 years ago just happened, right? Because it was something you needed to do at that point in time, and no one's questioned it since. I've done a few policy migrations for customers, and they had zero documentation of why they had anything in place, right? And it was just like, well, why do you have this setting? Floppy drive, is an easy example, but there's tons of other examples. And if you don't know why you have a setting in place, isn't that a problem? And in general, it absolutely is, and you need to go through and rationalize those kinds of things. Sure.
That's also like I was typing this. I guess I'll just rip it out, Band-Aid off. It's so weird, right? You hear customers ask for these like group policy preferences and stuff. They're just gonna wind up right where they are in the next 5 years with all the complexity and stuff. So it's like, in one regard, it's like, yes, thanks for the feedback. In another regard, it's like, well, as we start digging and investigating that feedback, it's like, are you really sure you want that? And as Jason said, why do you want that? Because just because the guy before you put that in or the girl before you put that in, I just have to follow suit. I get that everybody's on timelines, but if you don't take the time to evaluate why you have the things you have, you're just going to wind up in the same spot 3 years from now. It'll just be in the cloud. You'll have more problems because you're going to try to treat it like it's on-prem. And the cycle just will never end. You'll wind up putting yourself in a race condition that nobody's ever going to be happy with. So, as much as cliche as it sounds, because I've been on the other side of the conversation, sometimes patience is a virtue because it really makes you think. If anybody's been in IT long enough, you've learned when you get asked a question by end user, wait, don't just jump on it because they'll figure it out, right? It'll give them time to think, time to pause. That I won't say that's like an official thing we do, but it just kind of makes sense because we have to evaluate and investigate after we hear asks, comments, feedback from whatever we're doing. While we're doing the investigation, guess what? You probably figured it out or don't even need, it's not as urgent as it was when we initially talked about it. So anyway, rambling thoughts.
I do want to move on from this, but before I do, Olaf, the points that you made are good points. So make sure we had the link up here earlier, aka.ms/Intune feedback. Please keep giving us your feedback. And the last thing I want to mention on this, Olaf, was that we are talking about going cloud first. When you start thinking about printer mappings, cloud first is universal print, and driver mappings, again, cloud first is SharePoint and OneDrive and things like that. So expanding out to, as Rob said earlier, we're not building CM in the cloud. We're also not building your print servers in the cloud. We're not building your Active Directory in the cloud. All right, we do actually have a related comment from Joe on Tech Community. In Configuration Manager, I can create collections based off a huge variety of factors. Entra is kind of limited in this. Filters is even more limited. Will we ever see an increase in what we can target with group filters, Jason? I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, great question. It's clearly one of, from my background, Rob's background, actually all of our background, we're config manager, right? We're very used to building collections and having lots of collection sprawl, which was problematic as well. So the short answer here is, again, it's very similar to my previous answer. We understand there's an effective gap here of what folks want to do. And so us addressing this in the best way possible, it's not going to be collections, right? Going back to Rob's answer, we're not building config manager in the cloud. So we're not going to build collections. But there is a gap here. There is some more richness that's needed, some more granularity in targeting that's needed here. And it's something that is currently in the ideation phase, right? We're thinking about exactly how we need to do this and how we best need to serve all the customers. And then do that in a service world as well, so that we don't, cost a ton of money, that we don't have to maybe bring out some additional licensing or some, charge back to customers, because that's not always the best thing either. So there's lots of different considerations when we do something like this. But yes, we know there's friction. We know there's a gap. We know that, and we have some ideations in progress right now. So I would expect to see something at some point, but again, no timelines on this one.
Yeah, and sometimes when customers, and I'm going to go back to something Danny had said, when customers ask us for things like, to do something that they're doing today, but they want to do it in the cloud and they're stuck there 5 years later, we call that, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say this, but I will anyway, a non-pooping pony, right? Everyone wants a pony until they have to clean up after it. And then it's not such a good gift any longer. And that's really what we're doing. If we give you that blue button because 25 years ago we decided the button had to be blue and do this, and then today the button still has to be blue just because it always was blue, then you've got that non-pooping pony. All right, so to move on from that, we have a question, Lavanya. I'm going to give this one to you. It's coming in from LinkedIn. I'm confused on the difference between Copilot in Intune and Security Copilot, which is also in Intune. What's the role of each? Are they integrated? Do they operate separately?
That's a fantastic question. I think both of them are related, but both of them are different. And how are they different? Let's understand that. So Copilot for security, as you really think about it, is the platform and a foundation on which we build the whole Copilot experience. So today, the Copilot experience that you see within Intune, behind the scenes, is leveraging a platform, and that platform is nothing but Copilot for security, previously known as Security Copilot. So anytime people are telling you Security Copilot or Copilot for security, it's one and the same. So don't get confused. It's just a new name. We also want to keep the energy on, so we keep coming up with this new fancy name. So just kidding. But kind of what is the role? Like I mentioned, think about Copilot for Security as a platform where it really brings in the signals and data sources from 6 products. If you've been part of the Ignite or the recent RSA or MMS, you would have seen a very regular view of a flywheel, which has the Copilot for Security at the center and 6 1P products, which is Defender, Sentinel, Intune, Entra, Purview, and Preva. The reason for that is we have heard very clearly from customers, right? You're all in Microsoft, but why don't you talk to each other? Why don't you bring in the power of the data across the various products that exist within Microsoft ecosystem? We have taken that feedback seriously. And Copilot for Security is a start in the journey where we are bringing in the right signals. Again, I have heard this feedback several times. But we are not in the security organization. Security is not a product. Security is a concept, and security is so foundational to every aspect of, be it device management, be it app management. It is foundational, it is needed. That's why I love calling it as securing endpoint or secure endpoint management. That is kind of like my new favorite term that I do talk to customers all the time. Now, Joey, was there more to that question? Was it just the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think it's the difference between the two. And if you can expand that even, like, so Copilot for Security, as you said, it has all the 6 different pillars to it.
Right.
Intune is one of them. So Copilot for Security is integrated into Intune, but there's also the standalone Copilot for Security as well.
So what really happens is today, if you're within the Intune experience, and today we have enabled the capability for 2 important areas. One is the policy management, and again, we have barely just scratched the surface, right? So I keep saying that because policy management is big. And very interestingly, just prior to this, there were some questions around policies as well, right? Group policies. So as you really think about it, it's not like we have gotten all the scenarios related to policy management crafted just yet in Copilot, but we are working towards it. Now, policy management and troubleshooting are those 2 important scenarios that we have already enabled as part of our public preview release that went out on 4/1. And when you open the side panel experience and go through some of the suggested prompts, at the bottom, you will say powered by Copilot for Security. And when you click on it, it does take you to a standalone experience. And why is a standalone experience important is for you to be able to review your session. And when we think about reviewing your session, you really look at, okay, what were the sequence of prompts, or what were the sequence of suggested prompts that you selected? What was the response? And that is important as you think about eventually figuring out, should this be part of my workflow? Should I really leverage this session and add them as part of a prompt book? Those are some of the capabilities why it is important to understand the standalone experience as well. Again, we are not really taking you away from the Intune experience, but kind of complementing that with more additional information.
And we just had the link for more information on that, https://aka.ms Copilot and Intune for more information on that.
It's 2024, Joe. You don't need to read out the HTTPS bit.
Well, you know, I didn't say www. All right, so
it's pretty much the same though.
Thanks for that, Lavanya. We got a question I'm gonna give to you, Rob. That came in from Andreas on Tech Community. What's the best way to prevent giving users local admin rights? I know that there are solutions on the horizon like EPM, which we can talk about because it's actually available today. But that still only covers a small portion of what the users need, like .exes. How can I, what can I do to remove those admin rights from my local users?
So, yeah, I mean, the answer's pretty much there in the question, as you say, Joe. EPM, endpoint privilege management, is a feature within the Intune suite, so that's there. And also Cloud Lapse as well. That was a big gap for the longest time that we were tracking, as customers were transitioning from Active Directory to Entra, was, hey, I have this thing called Lapse. It's not there. It doesn't allow me to manage, local admin passwords. So Those two tools are really the tools in that particular toolbox. I think probably the gap that's being called out here is things like not being able to delegate permission to the to a standard user in the settings app in Windows, and that is a gap that we're aware of. So yeah, there are a couple of spots that we have work to go do on, but in terms of the answer to the question, it is EPM and it is Cloud Labs.
And when we talk about the settings app, as you mentioned, we're talking about not just like the settings app, but change an IP address or add a printer or a power display, something, change your power mode. All those things within the settings app, not just like launching the settings app, but doing all those things inside of the settings app.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And so Cloud Labs, I wasn't even thinking about Cloud Labs. That's a perfect example. Again, that's a local admin password solution to allow you to keep track of that local administrator's password, which is now a cloud-based solution. Now, I'm just gonna follow on that because Lavanya, you were just talking about Copilot, and Rob, you answered the question saying EPM. How are we thinking about like kind of combining those? Like, can we combine Copilot experience for EPM? Is that something that we could do, Lavanya?
Oh,
What are we
absolutely.
thinking about?
Yeah, we are. It's a great question and timely. In fact, one of the things that we were talking about, and this came back during one of my customer conversation at MMS as well, as we were talking about EPM scenario, where is it that Copilot could help? Because there is so much of information, right? When an admin really needs to make a quick decision on the elevation approval, having that information handy, even understanding about that application, and this is where I think, Danny, we need more information around the application. I'm just kidding.
Danny.
But I think the nuances of the kind of application and providing an approval request is never an easy task, right? And that's where I think as much as information we can collect and provide to the admin to be able to make that approval process easy is one very simple scenario where we think Copilot can really bring in its power, right? Again, we're not thinking about Copilot for anything and everything, but this is one of those scenarios where we think it will do great. So Joey, my ask to all of our customers would be, if they do have suggestions, please share it with us. And if I remember right, it was aka.ms/Intune feedback. So please send feedback our way. We would like to hear more about where you think Copilot for EPM could help.
And also the send a smiley in the Intune Admin Center.
Yeah.
Send a smiley, send a frown. That goes directly to our product group as well.
Straight to Danny.
Hey, we'll all take the smiles, we'll send the frown to Danny.
I'm listening to all this send feedback, and then Rob, right on time, says it goes all to Danny. Well, the app stuff though is interesting. This is not the first time I've heard about wanting more information about apps. We have some challenges. Early I would have definitely stood on the word challenges. Now, again, as we think and process more, I would argue they may just be more excuses for us or things we just haven't figured out, right? So it kind of depends which word you want to use. Doesn't matter to me. There's things that we need to figure out. It's possible. We do have some of our peers working on getting better inventory of applications, but then that turns into a spider web too. Like, again, this app stuff is really, I've lost a lot of hair messing with apps, but it's interesting and it's really fun to solve the problems. There's so many ways to solve the problems. And then what do we do with all that data? Do we need to keep that data? How do we analyze that data? And then back, like it's all circles all back around to, hey, I need to create a group based off of these properties of this application that's on X devices. So it all gets interesting because once you got the data, you need to execute on it, which, it can be said not just for apps. So I don't want to be selfish and just talk about apps, but it's a holistic Intune thing that we need to solve.
Yeah, another holistic Intune thing we need to solve is a question coming from LinkedIn. Is there an open prompting experience in Intune so we can more easily find out what we need to know without having to figure out where it is in Intune? for example, I'm guessing something like Windows updates. Is it under security or under devices then Windows? Or enterprise app management, is that under security or under apps or under devices Windows, right? So is there some way to make it easier to find the things that we may not even know we need in Intune? Some kind of open prompting experience. So Lavanya, because of the way it's worded, I'm going to come to you with Copilot, but it's not just married to Copilot. We're just talking about the Intune Admin Center.
Yeah, I was actually planning to pass that question to Danny, but let me take it. I'm glad whoever asked this question, it's a fantastic question, and I was really waiting for it, to be honest. The reason why I say that is during Ignite, we did make announcements around open prompting experience, and for a couple of you who were part of our private preview, we did have open prompting experience. But then when during the course, we kind of took a conscious decision to go back to scope prompting, and there is a reason behind it, right? The reason behind that was Copilot is evolving in its journey, and we do not necessarily have what we call as skills or the capabilities to answer all kinds of open prompting experience or to make the experience more consumable for our customers, right? Which is where after the private preview feedback, we did see that there were a couple of scenarios where we did see significant hallucinations, and we didn't really want to lead our customers in the wrong path. That's where we took a step back. We said, wherever we know we are 100% sure about the response are the scenarios we will enable, which is where we started off taking a step back with the scope prompting experience. But that is just an interim middle path, and we are going to bring back the open prompting experience as part of our GA. And again, I do not have a timeline for GA just yet, but it is going to be soon, and necessarily not pretty soon. And for some of you who were part of MMS Keynote, you know what I'm talking about when I say soon versus very soon. But I think we are already working on it. And yes, we want to ensure that you have the ability to ask your question. But I think there was another part of the question as well, right? Open prompting experience is not because you do not know where to find things within Intune, because we are also trying to solve that problem. And for most of you who have not been great fans of the Intune Admin Center's homepage experience, I would recommend please take a moment, go back, check out the experience, because it is the new enhanced experience and we are spending a lot of time. The reason for that is we want that to be your primary starting point when you don't know where to go find things. And that is applicable even for Copilot. Today, if you have the compute units configured, you go into the homepage experience, you will have a top section of the homepage, which has all the Copilot capabilities that we have enabled, and it will be a carousel view so that any new feature we do add, we will kind of have that as a running laundry list, and it'll be easy for you to, let's say I'm talking about policy management, all you need to do, go there, click on it, and it'll take you to the experience directly. You don't need to figure out whether it's under security, it's under some other blade, how do I get to it? We are working through a lot of experiments and also doing a lot of research along with our UX team, side by side with our customers to figure out what is it that will make the discoverability easy. So that's a separate problem we are already trying to solve alongside bringing back the open prompting experience. It's coming.
Thanks so much for that answer. It's and I like the question. I have some customers that don't even use the admin center. So I love because they did find it easier just to use Graph and everything else in their back end. But I love that you said if you've used it before, you didn't like it then, go back and revisit it. We've made a lot of changes, a lot of updates, and made it more user friendly. So thanks for that. We got a question from Simon. I'm going to come down to Danny for this one. Simon on Tech Community asks, is there likely to be a solution for patching third-party applications with Intune? How can we make that easier? And Danny, you're on mute right now. Okay, thank you.
So shameless plug, we do have a solution called Enterprise App Management. I already know I know what people are thinking as I say it. So I would say that's the beginning of us trying to help solve that problem. Patching is probably a strong word right now. We strive to get there. We really want to get to the point where you can use EAM as the patching solution. Right now, it's a catalog application, so it basically saves you time. So today, if you're downloading an app, pulling up command prompt, trying to figure out the solid install commands or all the properties for said application, like, it's truly a time-saving app for just acquiring an app right now. Somewhere very soon, as Lavanya said, very soon versus soon, but very soon we will be releasing the update scenario where you can actually get an update for an application that you deployed from the catalog. So notice the words I used there, very specific, deploying the application from the catalog. Aspirationally, I talked a lot about some of the early design stuff and aspirational things that we want to achieve as our North Star. So we do want to find a point where we can deal with unmanaged apps. Right now, it was just easier for us to deal with managed apps and actually break ground in the area. So that was our strategy. We know that customers want more, and I will repeat exactly what I said at MMS. You, as customers, should complain, scream, cry as loud as you can, and escalate, because that noise, it helps me to go to leadership and say, hey, this is what the people want, and this is how we get it. It's very easily for me to say, no, stop doing all that. But no, I would rather you complain and scream to the highest that you can, because the higher my leadership hears it, then it's just more evident for me to go and say, hey, this is what the people want. Prioritization does get hard, right? Because there's a lot of ask from I'm not going to name all my ask, but there's a ton of ask. But the louder the voices are, then we just look and see what's realistic for us to grab, what needs plumbing, because there are a lot of things that do need plumbing to achieve said goals and be aspirational. But once we get that plumbing, as we talked about earlier, right, some of the inventory stuff, there will be really great things we could do if we got more detailed inventory. It's more just about how do you take the theoretical, make it conceptual to actual realization. So anyway, I'll get off the soapbox there, but there is something you could do today that will just keep improving over time.
So a couple of links I want to share. Again, aka.ms/Intune feedback via yelling, screaming, and escalating. But also, if you need more information on enterprise app management, aka.ms, I'm sorry, Rob, https://aka.ms/EAM docs for more information on enterprise app management.
You missed www.
You
start phone calls by ringing the operator.
I had someone about 24 years ago say to me, why do you say backslash? I'm like, because it's called a backslash. What do you call it? He goes, I call it a reverse solidus. I'm like, you call it a what? A reverse solidus. Okay, it's the backslash. All right, we have a question. Actually, there's a question that I want to throw out there, Rob, to you. Like, Danny had this big three approach for cloud attach or tenant attach, cloud attach, which we don't really talk about anymore. What would be the new like big three thing we want our customers and our end users and our audience to know for cloud native?
So yeah, I talked about it at the beginning as to what cloud native is. We're trying to be really prescriptive, and it's a couple of themes we've heard from customers is tell us what you want us to do and tell us how to do it. So the what is, as I said at the beginning, it's Intune and it's AAD or Entra ID, and then in terms of getting there, we launched this, or we re-announced this at Ignite in November, and I call them my three simple steps. It's very much tongue in cheek when I call it simple, because for some customers, some of the steps are.
You mean like Brad Anderson's 4 clicks?
Oh,
exactly.
Really? We went there. Wow.
So three simple steps, and they will take time. Especially the last one where it's for new devices. But really, the 3 steps for getting to cloud native. But first of all, go move your workloads over to Intune. The big benefit here is, it's the best way to get single pane of glass. We hear this feedback a lot of, hey, like working in 2 consoles is kind of sucky, and it is for an individual. If you're having to go to two consoles within an organization, if you've got different personas in different consoles, not too much of a problem. But for an individual user, like two consoles is problematic. So get all of your workloads over to Intune and begin managing all of your devices from Intune. The second one is then for those existing devices. Go enroll your devices into co-management, into the hybrid Entra join state. Get them to be cloud connected. That gets you most of the way there in terms of the benefits. Starts getting you into things like the Copilot system, and it gets you, access to EAM and all of the other stuff that we've been talking about today. And then the third one is what to do for your existing devices, for new devices. Sorry. So for new devices, that's where you should be aiming to deploy those as Entra ID joined and Intune only. And that's going to take time, certainly in terms of the preparation, getting all of those pieces. It really falls under step one, but getting your cloud policy set up, getting your apps ready, getting all of your update rings configured. But then the reason that I say that's going to take time is because you'll notice I'm not talking about converting existing devices. The recommendation for your existing devices is to just age them out. Once they're cloud native, once they're co-managed, once they're hybrid joined, just manage them from the cloud and leave them in that state. And then as you refresh those devices on your 2, 3, 4, 5, 7-year hardware refresh cycle, whatever it is, just replace them. Move them over to cloud native at that point. Don't worry about your existing devices. So that's why that last one is going to take time, because you're basically just allowing your devices to age out naturally. If you have opportunistic opportunities, is that a tautology? It might be. If there's opportunities to go move the devices over, like don't double down on the old state. One of the common scenarios I think of there is a lot of organizations have a help desk policy that, hey, we spent 30 minutes troubleshooting this user's device. We're just going to reset it and re-image it, and just that's going to get it back to a clean state. It's kind of like getting a new car because your check engine light came on, but it's pretty effective. Like, it gets rid of the check engine light. If you're deploying new cloud native devices, don't double down just because it's a co-managed device. Don't re-image it back into the old thing. Use that as an opportunity to move that device over at that time, but otherwise don't really worry about conversion.
Mm-hmm. Great. And we have a blog series on this. I'm sorry, Jason, were you gonna?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, there's a key point here as well, too, is kind of why are we doing this? The why question we've come up with a lot. Why are we asking customers to do this? Why is this a good thing for customers? There's lots of why questions we can ask around all of this, because this is change. Change is hard. And anytime people encounter change, one of their first things is why, right? Why do you want me to change? And there's a lot of answers here, but a couple of the simple ones is this isn't necessarily a change only driven by Microsoft, right? The cloud is not something that Microsoft invented. It's clearly where, and I said this at the beginning, this is part of our mission statement 100%. But this is where the industry's gone. This is where customers have asked us to go, because the cloud makes all of this a commodity, right? It brings commodity services into the picture. It eliminates all of that on-prem infrastructure that everybody in the world did for themselves, and everybody in the world did for themselves at various levels of various degrees of success. And in most cases, probably not so well, right? Whereas put that in Azure, I guarantee you what we do in Azure, we do quite well. The other part of this from the change perspective, think about all of the wonderful attacks that we've had, state actor attacks, even, criminal organization attacks that we've had in the past 5 to 10 years, right? They're just ramping up. We all know this. We've seen it in the news. It's not something necessarily new, but it is forcing change. And zero trust, I think Rob mentioned zero trust a little bit before in this, right? When we talk about local admin permissions, zero trust is out there not because it's something cool. It's something that's required to respond to what the bad guys are doing, whatever your definition of bad guys is, right? We need to protect our orgs. We need to protect our users, the data of our customers. And that's what zero trust is all about. And that's what is driving a lot of this. We can't have zero trust. Well, can't maybe not the right word here. Within the Microsoft ecosystem, cloud native and zero trust are effectively equivalent as far as Windows goes. And that's one of the bottom lines here when you're thinking about why am I going through the pain of this change? It's all about, doing that, making sure that I have continuity in my business at the end of the day, because you're not going to do that if you don't have operational security.
I honestly think you could debate all day whether cloud native is zero trust or zero trust is cloud native. And there's a slide that I want to create in the back of my head for the walking deck that's basically just a circle of the two. And
I bet
Lavanya
Copilot
talked
for
about it.
Microsoft 365 could create that for you.
Yeah, and
Actually.
Lavanya talked about it. Like, management is security. You know, it's not necessarily how IT pros have typically thought about their role. And I talked about it as well earlier. Like the goal for an IT pro is to provide a secure and productive device, and that first bit is the most important of those aspects. So, you know, it's definitely, IT pros should definitely be feeling good about the contributions they make to the security of their organization. One of the tropes I often use is, you know, the most secure device, well, it's just doesn't have Windows or an OS installed on it. It's just, there's no attack surface. It's not very productive, but it's super secure. So it's about finding that balance of the security and the productivity, and that's really what the IT pro does as a persona, as a role, and it, you know, supports the business. You know, whether you make light bulbs, whether you make cars, whether you make software, like that's the thing that you're supporting through that secure and productive device that you provide. And Zero Trust / cloud native is the best way of doing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. We have a couple of links that were flashed up there. Heather, I'm going to ask you to put them back up. One of the links is our best practices blog. Jason Rozak, one of our chief product officer, wrote this blog, aka.ms// cloud native best practices. Make sure you review that for those best practices that we were just talking about. And I think I saw another one up there, aka.ms. Yes, 3 reasons cloud native. Again, make sure you review those to get some more information on, you know, everything we're talking about today with all this cloud native, all these cloud native things.
Should we say the new mantra, Joey, is secure endpoint management with all this
absolutely
that Rob was talking about and the cloud native? So I would say, please spread the word. Secure endpoint management is the route we want to go. And with some of the security first initiatives that you've all seen in the news from Microsoft, I think foundationally, we are all thinking about it and it's so important. So say it with us, secure endpoint management.
Thanks, Lavanya. Jason, any last words from you, my friend?
Yeah, I'll just go back to harping on change is hard. We all know this. This isn't a personal attack. This isn't us taking away jobs from anyone. Smart people still are needed to implement all of this, and smart people are needed to work on the end goals of your organization, which, you know, that really isn't something that we know about. You're always going to be middleman. I don't want to, you know, minimize what your role is by saying middleman. That's not how I mean it. But middleman between what we're doing and what your organization is doing, right? We need that. You need that. Your organization needs that. There's just potentially better ways of doing that than worrying about some of these commodity pieces, right? That, oh, I have a server that's running HP, you know, whatever server HP that you have, and it's running even Windows 12 or Windows, you know, running Windows 2012 or whatever version of Windows. Those are kind of somewhat details that should just be abstracted away from you when you're worrying about your business. And that's ultimately where all of this is going. So if you keep your mind and your focus on that, right, it's not about, again, taking away any IT pros jobs. It's about making the world a better place and making that environment secure.
I saw a tweet earlier that said something, it was earlier this morning, that said Copilot will take away jobs like microwaves took away the need for a chef. And I would say that's the same thing for cloud native. Cloud native is going to take away a job like microwaves took away the need for chefs. You still need chefs. You still need IT pros to do the job. As Jason
Many chefs use a microwave.
And they do. You have got. I'm not going to say that the chain name. Never mind. Danny, any last thoughts?
No, not really. Well, I think the thing I would say here is plan. Like if I was talking to myself back when I was managing my hospital, spend more time planning and executing. More planning, more planning, more planning. Do more of everything when it comes to planning. Slow. I forgot what my old saying used to be. Smooth is fast, fast is smooth. I don't even remember anymore. It's just I've done this too many times. Like plan is the key word for all this thing, because as Jason mentioned, change is inevitable. It's coming. Get on board with the change. The only way you'll be frustrated is if you fail to plan. That's it.
Thanks, Danny. Rob?
Just the same thing I said earlier on. Like, go try this out. Like, if you've not started that cloud native journey yet, go get one of those devices that's probably sat around in a drawer, get Windows 11 on it, and roll it into Intune, Entra ID join it, and just try it out. Like I personally made the move to what we now call a cloud native device in 2016. I've been living that world since way back then. So yeah, go grab a device, go try it out, and go test it. And more importantly, if you find those gaps, if you see those issues, like let us know. What was the aka.ms/Intune feedback? I think it was. Let us know where those gaps are, because we want to know that. Like, we want to make sure that we can support the outcomes of all our customers that we're asking to go through that transition to cloud native. As I say, we're not going to go build config manager in the cloud, but for those true business outcomes that you need for us to go solve, we'll work with you and make sure that we go solve those. And my final thing is, I often use this saying, but Jason talked about the why. The other way to think about it is, hey, how would my CIO, how would my CEO express this thing that I'm asking for? Because that automatically puts it into the impact to the business of like why this thing is crucial for me to go make those light bulbs, for me to go build those cars, like whatever it is that your business does. If you can get it into that business articulation, that's what Danny was talking about. Like, it really helps us to go fight the good fight and prioritize the appropriate work within our planning cycles to go close those gaps in a meaningful way.
All right, thank you, Lavanya, Jason, Danny, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us. For my audience that has been here from the securing Windows TCL or AMA to this Cloud First, thank you for joining us. The next one, you're going to be talking with Aria and David and Monica and Harmon on managing Windows updates. And then I'll see you all later for Windows Autopilot, which I'm very excited to talk to that crew about later on. So thank you all. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all for joining us as well.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.